Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content to do with childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with my experience of going through this childhood trauma. I also share news stories and add my thoughts and commentary to them. Also as well, I cover other topics to do with childhood sexual abuse, and from time to time, when I'm fortunate enough, I do interview other survivors and their supporters in hopes of raising awareness of this childhood trauma. So if this is the type of content you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you could be notified of any new uploads. And if you do like the content, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If I do sound a bit bunged up, please forgive me. I've got a terrible head cold, but I wanted to come on here today just to share with you this video because it's been something that has been on my mind for a couple of weeks now, especially as I've been reflecting over the last few weeks on how far I've come this year, how far I've come in my life, especially after going through childhood sexual abuse. One of the areas that I really did struggle with for a very long time in the aftermath of going through that trauma is struggling to like myself. And in today's video I just want to talk to you about that and share with you some things to help you if you struggle with even liking yourself after you've gone through childhood sexual abuse. So I didn't really recognize at the time, when I was going through my abuse from the age of 9 to 13 years old at the hands of my father, that I didn't really like myself. But it was only after going into care, starting therapy on and off, that I started to realise I had a really poor view of myself. I used to think that I was trash. I used to think that I was dirty. I used to think that I was soiled goods. I used to think that, you know, I was unlovable, I was tainted. All these kind of thoughts I used to think about myself, and I didn't realise at the time that they stemmed from being violated by my father through childhood sexual abuse. I always, because of my low self-esteem and my poor view of self, would end up in some relationships, I should say, that weren't necessarily good for me. And I think I spent a lot of the time, especially when I was younger, trying to prove to myself that these things that I thought about myself was true, through the kind of decisions and choices that I was making. Because I didn't like myself, because I didn't love myself, I engaged in a lot of self-destructive behaviours as well. As I've talked about on other videos before as well, I self-harmed for a number of years. I smoked a lot of weed, I drank a lot, you know, I was quite destructive, and all these different things that I was engaging in stemmed in part from how I thought about myself and how I just didn't feel that I was worthy to be treated well even by myself. Finally committing to the process of therapy seriously after I had my breakdown at 22 years old really did help me to deal with a lot of the deep-seated issues, a lot of the things that I spent a lot of time, you know, running from, including, you know, not liking myself. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see somebody that I could relate to. I didn't see somebody that I particularly liked. As a matter of fact, those decisions and choices I was making and the things that I was doing, I would feel disgusted at myself afterwards as well. It wasn't like I enjoyed it, but I just felt I needed to feed that part of myself that didn't like myself with things that connected to that mindset. I want to encourage you and say to you that if you recognise that you don't like yourself because of what has happened to you as a child, with your childhood sexual abuse, what happened to you, I would just say to you that your view can change about yourself. You don't have to feed into the negative lies that this experience has left behind in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit. It can be worked on. One of the great things that has helped me to work on these areas is my relationship with Jesus Christ, because I know that when I became a Christian, God helped me to just come as I was, and He helped to change my mindset towards how I viewed myself. I started to look at myself through His eyes, through reading the Word of God and the Bible, and seeing that I was fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I was the apple of His eye, you know, and that He had a real deep love for me that was not like the love that my so-called dad gave me. And I want to encourage you that you can get a different view of yourself through God and through therapy and through other things that will help you to start to look at yourself in a different way. You can start to like yourself, and I want to share with you a few things that helped me on my journey to liking myself. And I just want to say that it is a gradual process. It's not something that will happen overnight, because as with anything that is traumatic, it takes time to first acknowledge it. It takes time to, process it and then start to deal with it. So the first thing I want to share with you is to get to know yourself. As somebody that has gone through childhood sexual abuse, my identity for a long time was wrapped up in this identity of being a survivor. Now, I know that I have survived something traumatic, but to live in a survival state and to claim that as my new identity, which is connected to my childhood sexual abuse, didn't really help me. I had to get to know myself outside of me being a survivor, outside of my experience of childhood sexual abuse, because that trauma had lived with me for so long. It was part of me, and I didn't know who I was, what I wanted, what I was passionate about for a very long time, because my identity was so tied in to my traumatic experience. After starting therapy properly at 22, I started to have to do the work of thinking about who Yvonne was. I had to obviously go through, dealing with some of the issues and things that were left behind. But whilst I was doing that, one of the things the therapist said to me at the time is to think about what Yvonne wants. And that was very difficult, because for a long time I never thought about what Yvonne wants. I didn't think I had a right to think about what I wanted, because my rights had been taken away from me at a young age, and I was just living in this state of surviving and just going along with whatever, trying to get through every day, struggling with depression and going through so many things. I never thought about what I wanted. And I found something as simple as that, or something seemingly as simple as that, so difficult. What did I want? Where did I want to go in my life? It took me a little while to start thinking about that, and to not think about my trauma in the midst of this thing that the therapist asked me to do. But I started to realise through doing that little exercise, when I was getting to know myself, is that I liked writing. I was passionate about poetry, I liked writing, I was quite creative. Even though these were things that I wasn't engaging in or doing, I had memories of being in secondary school and primary school and enjoying these things. So that was a really good place for me to start to get to know myself. I started to spend time doing these things little by little, and it gave me a sense of enjoyment. It gave me a sense of escapism, a healthy escapism, rather than smoking weed and drinking and stuff like that. It was a very healthy and creative way for me to get to know myself. And from that, I started to get to know myself in other areas as well. I knew that I liked to exercise, I liked to do things to a high standard, and it just kind of expanded, really. So I would say to you to get to know yourself, even if you don't really think you know anything about yourself now. Maybe, like myself, maybe it's in a memory that you had of yourself when you were younger, something that you are drawn to, like attention wise. Even if you're not at a stage where you know yourself internally, you can get to know yourself through some of the things that you might like to do. That is always a good place to start. The next thing I want to share with you is I want you to remember that what has caused you not to like yourself is not your choice. It is a result of something that has happened to you. This was something that I had to keep reminding myself time and time again, because when I thought about how I was before the age of 9, and I have really distinct memories, not a lot of them, of how I was in primary school, how I was with my friends, how I was at home. I remember that I actually liked myself. I remember, loving to dress up as a young child, put on pretty clothes. I remember I used to love to dance around. I remember actually liking myself. I didn't have a complex about myself. I remember being quite shy at times, but I remember being quite fun and funny at times. And I remember those things about myself. But then by the time the abuse started at 9 years old, I found that those same things that I used to think about myself then, I didn't think about myself after that in that way anymore. So it's important that you remember that the reason that you don't like yourself has been instigated, has been caused by something traumatic that has happened to you. You have been violated in the worst way. You've had somebody that has forced their will upon you, and it has caused an effect to your life. And that effect may be, like, as I've shared, you not liking yourself, having a very low opinion of yourself. You have to remember that you didn't choose not to like yourself. Same way you didn't choose to feel shame or to blame yourself for what's happened to you, even though you've got nothing to blame yourself about. You have to remember that. And if you can just keep reminding yourself of that and working on trying to like yourself, over time things will change. I don't know how long it will be for you. For me, it was quite a long time, but you have to hold on to the fact that the reason you don't like yourself has been because of the effects of something that was done against you by somebody else. I don't believe anybody chooses not to like themselves. So think about that and remember that. Write that down and go back to it to remember the reason why you don't like yourself, and work on trying to like yourself at the same time. The next thing I want to share with you is to allow yourself time and grace to deal with your trauma. As I mentioned, getting to like yourself is a gradual process. It's not going to happen overnight, and you can't beat yourself up about the fact that maybe you don't like yourself or love yourself in the way that you wish you could. There is a process to things that need to happen, and you have to work through whatever the situation is to get to that point where you can start to like yourself. In the meantime of all that going on, you have to allow yourself the time to do it, and you have to allow yourself grace. Now, I used to get really frustrated at myself because I used to, want things to happen yesterday. I lacked patience. I wanted to be better yesterday. I wanted to be healed yesterday. I didn't want to deal with my abuse anymore. I used to get really frustrated and depressed because it just seemed to plague me year after year after year. And this went on for over 20 years. But over time, in a subtle and gentle way, especially when I was allowing things to just start to naturally happen, the healing and everything else, I started to realize that I was slowly changing my viewpoint towards myself because I was allowing time to just do its thing. I was also giving myself grace. And as somebody who has struggled with self-condemnation for so many years, I can tell you, if you allow yourself grace and allow yourself the room to heal, to breathe, to be able to just process naturally what has happened to you, it will do wonders for you. It will do wonders for your life. Your view towards yourself will start to change. But if you have got yourself on a tight leash, or if you've got a hammer over your head, hammering yourself all the time, it's just not going to happen. All you're going to do is to end up disliking yourself more, disliking, the process. It takes time. So I would say to you, in the process of trying to like yourself, allow yourself the time and grace to heal from the things or to process the things that have happened to you. It's so important to do that. It really does make a difference when you give yourself the room and space to breathe. And the last thing I want to quickly share with you is to work positively on you and the things you want for your life step by step. So you may not know really what you like about yourself, but there are things that you can positively do to work on yourself. You could work on your health. You can, exercise each day. Maybe you're not somebody who likes the gym. Maybe you want to go for walks every day, walking for 20 minutes a day, getting out in the fresh air, clearing your head. It's also good for your mental health. That is something you can do to work positively on yourself every day. You could also work on your diet, taking care of it by eating fruit and veg and eating things that are healthy for you. Maybe because of the things you've gone through, maybe you're an emotional eater, and in emotionally eating, you eat a lot of junk food. What you can do is to start to replace those things. Work positively on yourself could be to do with things, as I mentioned at the beginning, things that you enjoy. But you do it step by step. It's not something you can just do all at once, but each day, if you can invest that time into doing something to work positively on yourself, these things will help with your self-esteem, your confidence, how you view yourself, and in time you will get to start to like yourself as well. And I said the last point was the last one, but I've just remembered something else, and that is not to reject yourself. I spent a lot of time rejecting myself, rejecting anything good about myself, rejecting any kind of progress I made, rejecting any achievements I made, not good enough, not worthy of these type of things. I spent a lot of time pushing myself away, and I want to encourage you not to push yourself away. Don't reject yourself. Try and get to a stage where if somebody pays you a compliment, or if you do something nice, or you do something that is something that you never thought you would achieve, congratulate yourself about it. Don't dismiss it, don't rubbish it, don't say, well, if it's only because of this and that, it's a fluke or whatever it is. Don't rubbish anything good that you're trying to do in your life. Any achievements that you've done, anything at all, don't push it away. You have to start to not reject yourself. And it may be difficult for you to hear you've done something good or to congratulate yourself on something, but just kind of thank yourself, just kind of accept it rather than reject it. I think that is so important as well in learning to like yourself, because it's so easy when you don't like yourself, and I'm speaking from experience, to just rubbish everything to do with what you've done. I used to do it. I used to rubbish everything I used to do. Anything to do with myself was just never good enough. It took time to change that, and I can honestly say that the viewpoint I have of myself now, through just the things that I've shared with you, doing these things, has helped me to look on myself in a much more positive light. I do definitely like myself. I'm working on loving myself. I think I do love myself, but I think there are days where I still struggle with that. But, by the grace of God, I've made it this far, and I hold on to His word to help me and encourage me in the times where I feel lost, and feel that, I am unworthy of the good things that I've done in my life and that I have in my life. So guys, that is what I wanted to share with you in this video. I really hope and pray if you're somebody who struggles to even like yourself in the aftermath of the things that have happened to you, I really hope and pray that your viewpoint will change by the grace of God, and that you will be able to see yourself through your own lens and not through the lens of the traumatic experience that you've gone through. So that is it for this video. Until the next one, take care.